The term cell was coined by Robert Hooke in 1665. After many discoveries later by other scientists, the cell theory came to life. This theory states that life forms are made from one or more cells, cells only arise from pre-existing cells, and the cell is the smallest form of life. So like mentioned before, cells are the basic building blocks from which all organisms are created. Cells can function independently and perform all the necessary functions of life, including reproducing itself. They also contain DNA. These cellular processes allow organisms to meet their basic needs. So without cells, life would not exist. Our first cell that we will be observing today is the animal cell. The animal cell can be compared to New York City since it is full of resources and everything that anyone needs is located within that city. This orange jelly-like substance in the animal cell is called the cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton is responsible for directing cell movements and it gives cells their shape. This is why the cytoskeleton in New York City is compared to the roads. Roads are also responsible for directing cars and in a way, they give the city its shape. Next, we have the nucleus. The nucleus controls cell activity, stores DNA, and it is a site for RNA synthesis. The nuclear pores also allow for communication between the cell and the nucleus. This is why the nucleus is known as the information store of the cell. And for this reason, in New York City, the nucleus is the New York City City Hall. The City Hall is responsible for executing the laws. Now we have the rough ER and the smooth ER. The rough ER is the site of protein synthesis, and the smooth ER is the site of lipid synthesis. Both endoplasmic reticulums can be compared to the Whole Foods market, but there are different sections within that market. The rough ER would be the fish and meat aisle, while the smooth ER would be the aisle that contains food with fats. Here we have the ribosomes. Ribosomes in an animal cell help make protein in the cytoplasm and rough ER. Ribosomes in New York City would be the construction workers that are always working on the streets since they help fix roads, sidewalks, etc. Here we have the Golgi. The Golgi collects, sorts, packages, and distributes materials such as proteins and lipids as they move to their final destination in or out of the cell. In New York City, the Golgi is the postal office, since they are in charge of sorting and distributing mail and packages. Next, we have the lysosomes. They are the cell's garbage disposals because they digest and recycle cellular waste products. Lysosomes can easily be compared to the garbage disposal system in New York City. This right here is the plasma membrane. It is composed of phospholipids and proteins, and it regulates the passage of materials into and out of the cell. The plasma membrane can be compared to the toll booths on the edges of the city because the workers at those posts help dictate who's allowed into and out of the city. This organelle is called a centriole. Its main function is to help with cell division in animal cells. They help form the spindle fibers that separate the chromosomes during cell division. They are similar to highway traffic signs since these signs help divide cars into different paths. The next organelle is the vacuole. It is a storage structure of the cell because it can hold food for later use or waste for removal. Vacuoles can be compared to the Lincoln Correctional Facility in New York City. This sounds mean, but prisons remove and hold people that are a waste to society. The last organelle in the animal cell is the mitochondria. It generates usable energy from food to power the cell. This is why the mitochondria is known as the powerhouse. In NYC, the mitochondria is the Indian Point Energy Center. They also help produce energy that the city uses. The next cell that I will be explaining is the plant cell. The plant cell in this video will be compared to the city Lawrenceville here in Georgia. The first organelle is the nucleus. It stores DNA and it acts as a cell's command center. In Lawrenceville, the nucleus is the Gwinnett County Clerk of Courts because they help mandate laws in order to keep the city running. The mitochondria in the plant cell is also the powerhouse. They take in nutrients, break them down, which creates energy for the cell. The mitochondria in Lawrenceville are similar to the windmills that provide energy for the city. Next is the Golgi. The Golgi helps in processing and packaging the macromolecules like proteins and lipids that are synthesized by the cell. In Lawrenceville, the Golgi is also the post office because they are in charge of delivering and packaging mail. The cytoplasm or the cytoskeleton is this gel-like material that makes up the cell membrane, and it is in charge of directing cell movement and giving cells their shape. The cytoplasm in Lawrenceville is the structural support in buildings and homes. This framework gives homes and buildings their shape and they allow for movement inside. The plasma membrane, just like in the animal cell, is composed of phospholipids and proteins. It also regulates the passage of materials into and out of the cell. This can be compared to the city borders of Lawrenceville, which controls who enters and exits the city. This is the smooth and rough ER. The smooth ER is the site of lipid synthesis, and the rough ER is the site of protein synthesis. The factories in Lawrenceville do the same thing by manufacturing products for the city, like packaging meat or packaging butter for groceries. Ribosomes in plant cells also help make protein in the ER and cytoplasm. In Lawrenceville, the factories across the city represent ribosomes since they help make products. This right here is a lysosome. Since they are the cell's garbage disposal and since they digest and recycle cellular waste products, they are similar to the Newell Recycling Center here in Lawrenceville, which recycles metals that are considered waste to others. The vacuoles in plant cells are much larger than in animal cells, and it can sometimes take up more than half of the cell size. It's also in charge of holding large amounts of water, food, and waste. The water tower in the city has the same function because it can store water for later usage in the city, like emergency. The cell wall provides structural strength, protection, and increased resistance to water loss. It is like a dam that protects the land from overflowing with water. This water is prevented from being lost, and it can provide water for irrigation or even human consumption. Lastly, we have the chloroplast. It is simply in charge of performing photosynthesis. During this process, sugar is created, which is food for the cell. Farmers in Lawrenceville, like in the Rancho Alegre farm, harvest fruits and vegetables that use photosynthesis, and in turn, these fruits and vegetables become food for people. Now you have seen what an animal cell and plant cell looks like. You also saw the organelles compared to cities. These two cells both have a nucleus. In the animal cell, it was compared to the New York City Hall, and in the plant cell, it was compared to the Gwinnett County Clerk of Courts. Next, they both have a mitochondria. In the animal cell, it was compared to the Indian Point Energy Center, and in the plant cell, it was compared to windmills. Third, they also have Golgis. In both cells, they were both compared to postal office in the cities. Next, they both have cytoskeletons. In the animal cell, it was compared to the New York City roads, and in the plant cell, it was compared to the structural supports of the buildings in Lawrenceville. They also both have ribosomes. In the animal cell, it was compared to construction workers, and in the plant cell, it was compared to factory workers. They also have plasma membranes. In the animal cell, they were compared to toll booths, and in the plant cell, they were compared to the Lawrenceville border. Next, they both have a smooth and rough ER. In the animal cell, it was compared to Whole Foods, and in the plant cell, it was compared to the factories. They also had lysosomes. In the animal cell, it was compared to the garbage disposal system, and in the plant cell, it was compared to the Newell Recycling Center. Last, they both have vacuoles. In the animal cell, it was compared to the prisons in New York City, and in the plant cell, it was compared to the water towers in Lawrenceville. Now, plants have a cell wall and a chloroplast, while animal cells do not. The cell wall in plants were compared to dams in Lawrenceville, and the chloroplast was compared to the Rancho Alegre farm. However, plants do not have centrioles, and in animal cells, there are centrioles. These centrioles were compared to the highway traffic signs in New York City.